Hi, welcome to Jewish Culture and Jewish Awareness. My name is Dustin Hausner. I am the Jewish Outreach and Program Director at the Wayne YMCA. Our Jewish programming is funded through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. So today I'm very interested in today's interview because I went on a website that showed very interesting clothing and really just great reminders of different types of yesteryear nostalgia, things that my parents and grandparents and others have talked about, from having a Jewish background in Brooklyn and other experiences. And I thought this was so interesting that I wanted to have, the person who was the founder speak about it. He also has a very interesting clothing line titled Oy Vey, which who's not going to love a clothing line called Oy Vey? But I would love to introduce the founder of Yesteryear Wear, who's going to talk more about it, Mr. Steve Gold. Steve, it is so great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So let me ask you, just straight out, for anyone who hasn't looked on the website, who hasn't seen Yesteryear Wear, I spoke about very briefly, but can you talk about what is Yesteryear Wear and what was the reason for creating this type of clothing line?
Well, yesteryearwear.com was created as a nostalgic site to offer icons of places that we grew up with and that are now defunct or out of business. And because growing up in the Catskills, and the Catskills being a word that everybody knows, I felt the best thing to do was to put up all the old hotels, the major hotels, bungalow colonies, and landmarks or famous restaurants, and promote it. And we promoted it on Jewish websites, different Catskill, I should say not websites, Facebook groups. And the response was incredible. Not only the response of people buying items, which is great, but the responses that I got, how excited they were to give their grandparents, a shirt, that said the Browns Hotel or the Neville. The Neville, I get comments, oh, my parents or my grandparents spent their honeymoon there. So you picked up on something that people want to remember, the happier times in life. And it's not just now. In the 90s, I had a club in the Hamptons called the Boomer Club, where we played music from the 50s. So every generation goes back 2 generations or 3 generations to remember, what they grew up with. My sons, I'm sure, watching Rem and Simpson and say, oh my God, do you remember this? So it struck a nerve. And so I figured, okay, if it struck a nerve for the Catskills, we're going to do it for other areas. So we're doing it with Brooklyn. We're going to be doing it with different areas. Now, being Jewish and loving Jewish humor and growing up in the Catskills, where every famous comedian started there, was Jewish. And Yiddish, which to me is unfortunately a dying language for us, I speak Yiddish fluently, which is shocking to a lot of people because they look at me, oh, an American speaking Yiddish. And I learned the Yiddish from my parents. I'm the only one, my brother and sister, they understand it, but they don't speak it. And knowing Yiddish has given me a step to further my career. When I was in the kosher chicken business and I would travel the country and I would meet the butchers, I would meet them and talk Yiddish to them. And that I got the sale right there and then. And if they had a daughter, they always would say, can I introduce you to my daughter because you speak Yiddish? And also Yiddish, quick story, there was a nightclub in New York called The Saint, which was a gay nightclub in the 80s, and they never let straight people in. And I wanted to bring straight people in because it was closed on Friday night, and I couldn't get to meet with the owners. And finally, I got a meeting with them, and I go up to their office, and it's gorgeous, all glass and closed, but I'm waiting outside. and the door is open, and all the owners start talking in Yiddish.
Oh.
And they say, in Yiddish, we'll just have this guy come in and throw him out. So when I walked in, I started talking Yiddish to them. They made the deal with me. So I was the first straight person to be able to do these events. So Yiddish has helped me in growing my career. But there's also Yiddish words that are just, become lexicon, whether it's Ivey, Schmutz, Schmegegi, Schnorra, Saurus. People know it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or not, you just know those words. So I decided to take some of those words like, the fun words, Saurus, Spilkes, and tie it into what is going on with the COVID world. What 2020 was about. So we created these t-shirts that says 2020, nothing but Saurus, or nothing but, Spilkes, or nothing but Mishigas, all these words that people know. And again, it hit a button. People were buying it. And better than I thought it would. We all have crazy ideas. And some work, some don't work. But this worked. And we're going to be expanding it, not just with Yiddish, but we're going to be expanding it in other ethnicities. We're doing one 2020, nothing but Ajita. So we're going to have, different ethnics using their slang that people know. Ajita is another word that everybody knows what it is. And to expand the line that way, to put all my items try to put a smile on people's faces. And I think that's very, very important in what I do and what my belief is. You got to make people smile. I sometimes think I'm funny and I'm not, but I try to add humor when I talk. Again, it doesn't always work. But I think it's important that we show our emotion as happy. And when I wore this Nothing But Saurus t-shirt, which I wore to the Ruth Bader, memorial we set up, people came, they were not Jewish, loved the t-shirt. Oh, I know what Saurus means. And, and that's what you want, that reaction, and you watch their smile and it makes it all worth it.
So let me ask you, because obviously you're very passionate about it, and you are absolutely right that obviously the lexicon of, certain Yiddish terminology has just transcended Judaism, and many people know oy vey or, a schmaltz or things like that. So I guess my two-part question is, one, in regards to the yesteryear line, which, as you said, is Catskills, Brooklyn, a number of these areas, what do you think, and you talked about it a little bit, why do you think nostalgia is so powerful for many people, in the sense of, like, when they see this word, they smile, but I'm curious why you think that nostalgia is something that's so resonating with many people, and why it gives such a reaction?
Well, nostalgia has always brought back the happy times of your youth. When you're 5 years old, 6 years old, and you're watching, Rugrats, you're happy, And then you get older, and then you forget about Rugrats. But if all of a sudden you see something about Rugrats, you're going to remember the happy time. Oh, I remember sitting in front of the TV with my friends, and, that type of thing. And the same thing with the Catskills. People remember what it was, young people and old people, but growing up, driving up to the Catskills every summer, and it was, and the idea of the freedom, don't forget the bungalow colonies. Kids just went and, came and left, whatever no one cared. No one was worried about anything. And, the smells and the salamanders after a rain, nostalgia, when you're young, you had a lot of happy times, and that's what people want with all the craziness that's going on in the world, not just now, but always. It brings back to a time where it was a lot simpler, and it brings back a memory. I wish I could be there again, but I know I can't. But I want to be able to wear that memory so people can ask me about it, or they can smile because they know the Concord Hotel, or they know the Red Apple Rest, or and it's interesting. And you know, it grew bigger than I thought it would grow, but it definitely, you know, hit a nerve with a lot of people. And that's what I believe it's playing on people's emotions of all the good times they used to have. You know, when they walked out of that car to go to the Catskills, you know, they smelled that cut grass. You know, when you have some of the Yiddish T-shirts, people, when you talk Yiddish, people go back to their parents' and grandparents' kitchens. You know, the smells of the Jewish holidays. And it was a great time, you know, to walk into your parents' house or your grandmother's house and you smelled the chicken soup and the challah in the oven. It was a time where families were together. You know, growing up, Friday night was Shabbos meal and the whole family was there. There was no excuse. And we miss that. And I think that's what this does, is bring people back to the time where it was a great learning experience. And you know, people remember the sanctuary things, you know, the smells, the sights. And that's what we try to do with this. And to make it funny, you know, just so people can buy it and laugh and smile and wear it, so they know people are going to give a good reaction to it.
So let me ask, because obviously, as you mentioned, these are things of yesteryear, and many of these places unfortunately just don't exist anymore or aren't the same existing. I'm curious how much research you had to go into, because if for anyone who goes onto the website, the yesteryearwear.com, you know, you'll see a lot of like logos from, you know, different restaurants and places and things. And, you know, there had to be quite a bit of research, I would think, to make sure you had the right image and you chose kind of the most iconic places. So I'm curious how much went into that before you know, chose the designs and found them for the shirts and other materials you have.
Well, for me, the research was easy because I grew up in the Catskills. So I lived that whole time when the bungalows, you know, there was thousands of bungalows and hundreds of hotels. So I lived in it. I knew, you know, and plus I worked at the Concord and the Raleigh and the Neville, you know, I did all that thing. So that was easy because I knew what the hot places were. Mm-hmm. Where I got my logos from is I researched old ads in the New York Post and the New York Times from the 60s. Okay. You know, on, I think it was Tuesdays in the New York Post, every hotel and bungalow colony would advertise, and they would have their logos. And in the New York Times, on Sundays, the travel section, they would have the Concord, they would have Grossinger's, you know, talking about who they're going to have for the summer. And also I had friends who were in the printing business, you know, whose parents were in the printing business, that they had some of those logos. So, and, you know, we had to tweak a lot of them to make it transferable to T-shirts, but the information was out there, you know, and, you know, thank God for Google and you know, it was interesting to look at the New York Times. I remember in high school, I used to look at the microfilms on the New York Times with that machine. You would go and I would look at the old Fillmore East ads. But that's what it reminded me, going back to look at these old ads. And what's wonderful is it's all out there. I mean, New York Times has an outrageous, I mean, amazing library of all, you know, almost every single newspaper, and it's the full newspaper. So you can see the ads, and you can see the you know, how ads transform, even in the Catskills, how the hotel's logos change from not as sophisticated to sophisticated. You know, what the ads entailed as, you know, indoor pools became popular, they started advertising indoor pools and golf courses. So that was an interesting thing to look at. But the Brooklyn was a lot harder to do because I didn't grow up in Brooklyn. But I knew Brooklyn because my parents owned a bungalow colony and most of the tenants came up from Brooklyn. So what I did, I went on some of the Brooklyn Facebook groups, whether it's Canarsie Group, Bensonhurst, and I asked people to send me a list of places that they grew up with that are no longer closed, that are no longer open. And I got hundreds of different places. So I put it into a database, and I put how many people said Lundy's or whatever. And the top 10, I picked, these will be the t-shirts based on people's responses. So that was a lot harder than the Catskills, and also a lot harder to research the logos because they weren't as prevalent available as the Catskills were because of all the advertising the Catskills did. So we're going to be doing the same with other regions, where hopefully for next summer we're doing sleepaway camps across the United States that are now closed. We're not doing any of them that are open because they're open. So if somebody wants to buy a t-shirt at a camp that's open, they don't need me. But it's that whole thing. And there's a Facebook group for everything. There's a Facebook group for Oivay. There's a Facebook group for Jewish humor. There's a Facebook group for Yiddish humor. There's a Facebook group for everything. So what's made I don't want to give away secrets to get competitors, but in today's world, it's very easy. And I encourage people to do this. If you have an idea, put it together. And with the technology out there, Google or whatever, and even the way we sell it on our, web store, everything is done for you. These companies, it's really a turn. If you want to go into the t-shirt business online, it's turnkey. You could be in it tomorrow. But it's great to have the product, but now you got to get eyeballs to the product. So that's what we try to do with our creative ads. We do influencer campaigns. I know a lot of famous people that I've sent them t-shirts and they post it on their Facebook or Instagram. And that is tremendous. That's better than anything. When you have, somebody, wear a t-shirt that it's just pretty amazing.
Well, look, if you have Mel Brooks's phone number, let's talk after the show.
Well, he started in the Catskills. So.
Well, that's exactly right. Him and Carl Reiner, the 2,000-year-old man, a lot of that was from testing it there, right, and then doing it on the live stream. And Caesar and Caesar Romero, a number of them. So we reached a lot of people. But let me ask, and I know this may be a very tough question because I always find this type of question very tough. Do you have any particular favorites of the things that you've come out with in either the yesteryear wear line or from Oivay? Personal favorite, I love you have a mask that's of a mask that says Oivay.
Right.
That's just great Jewish humor. I think it's very funny. That's something that I particularly had my eyes on, but I'm curious for you as the creator, is there specific products that you think have either that have a very deep connection to you that you love so much, or even just ones that have been selling particularly well that you think are very popular favorites?
Well, on the Oivay line, growing up in a Yiddish household, and knowing how much the Jewish faith means to me, and with my parents being Holocaust survivors, and I grew up around these words, and they were funny words. And so I think Saurus is one of, 2020, nothing but Saurus is my favorite one. It's also the best-selling one. But we also have a line of Jewish notebooks, that are tongue-in-cheek, non-kosher foods I eat outside my kosher home. Just to make it, because that's the reaction we want to get when people go on this website, is that they smile. With all the stuff that's going on in the world, you need something to make you smile. And if I could do that, it's great. And if they buy it, it's even better.
So I'll ask before we ask you about reminding everyone where they can find the materials. I guess my question for you is for people who may have not actually grown up with these experiences in the sense of the Catskills or Brooklyn, or may not necessarily have had that Jewish growing up, but would find these shirts very entertaining or nostalgic or interesting. What would you say for anyone who would be interested in these shirts? Why should they go to your website? Why should they take a look? And ideally, of course, smile and purchase some of these products.
Well, I think people are looking for an outlet to smile. And people do smile when you wear these items. And so it's pretty cool, that you created something that you're wearing that people are going to smile, just as you did with the Oy mask. Yes, it's great to get a sale, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But sometimes to see people's reaction in a great way, that is sometimes, to me, is worth as much as trying to make money on this business. And I think that's so important that you try to pick up on emotions that people are missing right now, and try to make it happen. Everything I do, I try to make people smile. Again, sometimes it doesn't always work, but that's important. That's what, the whole line of this yesteryear, yesteryearwear.com is, to make people smile. It's that whole, I remember those days. And that's what I want to come across. And it's coming across that way. And it's pretty cool. I did that. I have another store where I sell the original stage from the '69 Woodstock Festival. And, everybody, when you say the word Woodstock, I don't care how old you are, people smile. There's no one that has anything negative to say about Woodstock. Maybe a couple farmers in the '60s did. But again, it's a word that makes people smile. So to try to do items that associate with a happier time, I think is what's making this successful.
Wonderful. So please remind everyone, so what is the website and what is the best way to find out either new news about either the yesteryear wear or the Oy Vey line particularly? Where's the best place for people to find it? And
well, the best place is the main website, which is yesteryearwear, and wear is WEAR.com. And when you go to the website, it's easy to navigate. You can see the items we have for the Catskills. There's an Oy Vey line, there's a camp line, and there's a Brooklyn line. So you can see the different items, and it's easy to navigate. If you have a favorite hotel, you can put in the Browns Hotel and it'll come up. And we also have that you can custom make a t-shirt. So if you went to a bungalow colony that wasn't very popular, but you still want to remember the logo, we have a font that you just put, you type in what you want that bungalow colony to be, and now you have that bungalow colony t-shirt. And that's also very successful because a lot of people didn't go to all the famous, big places. So, but the feedback, the comments, and if you go, to reviews on Facebook or Twitter about our products, it's all emotional. You can tell that this meant something to people, and it's pretty cool. We want to do, we're going to offer this as a great Hanukkah present, Christmas present, or whatever you celebrate present, because it's inexpensive per se, and it's a present that we need smiles. Someone's going to open this. It's like some woman emailed me. She's buying her father one of the notebooks.
Yeah.
And she wanted a card, and we say we don't, the way the system works, unfortunately, we can't add gift cards because I'm not doing it.
Okay.
So the whole idea is to make people happy. And so here's a person who I couldn't make her wish come true because she wanted her father to, smile. So I gave it to her as a gift for her father.
Oh,
And she loved it, and then the Yiddish, oh, you're such a mensch, you're such, but it's great that, and you can look on their Facebook picture, these aren't people you would look at like you or me, oh, they must know Yiddish. So the idea that they have that Jewishness still in them, and they still show the respect to their parents and grandparents. I think it's another honor how we were raised as Jewish people, who we respected. And I think that's another key to this, that it shows respect, that, this meant so much, the Neville, because my parents went on their honeymoon, if I get this to them, they're going to smile. There's no way they're not, unless they were divorced. So, it's cool, to me as a person, to create items that affects people in a positive way is very, very important. So, the idea that me as a person can make strangers smile is pretty cool.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for making the time to speak with us. I think what you've done is really interesting, very entertaining. I think it's something, as you said, that has a wonderful nostalgia and joy when people see the shirts, the notebooks, the masks, so on and so forth. I hope people will go onto your website and look at Yesteryear WEAR.com and take a look for themselves. And again, really want to thank you for sharing your story with us. And to everyone out there, I want to say I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, stay well. And we look forward to having you watch another episode. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dustin, for having us.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone.